How do you imagine your retirement
Hmm.
from whatever you're doing or will be doing and ultimately engaged in?
I don't think I think about retirement. Yeah, I don't think I think about what I would do after retiring or what life would be like after retiring. I'm not holding off on a set of things that I will do once XYZ has gotten done. If there are things that I'm interested in doing and if there are things that I want to carve time out for, I go ahead and do that even now. Um, so yeah, I don't actually imagine too much about what retirement would be like.
How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, geez, it's interesting that I've been talking to people about this. So I'm 59. I'm figuring I'm probably recruiting my last batch of PhD students, this year or next year, because it takes 5, 6 years to finish them up. I do plan to retire at 65 and go emeritus. So what I've been telling everybody, and now this is going to be on a public thing, I really have to do this. Anyone who knows me knows I read lots of popular science books. So I've always wanted to write a popular science book for the broader public. And so I want to do this about probably mainly learning and language. How can we build computer systems that you would learn human language and write a nice popular science book about that topic? So that's my current plan, is retire at 65 and write this magnum opus on that topic.
Fascinating. Looking forward to it. How do you imagine your retirement one day?
Well, my wife wants to move somewhere warm as our next move. So, maybe going to the Caribbean and just kind of, maybe doing some amount of research. I can imagine kind of like buttering at a slow pace on researchy things, maybe kind of doing some teaching or advising type stuff, but not in a stressful way, like cutting out all the stressful parts of research.
How do you imagine your retirement? Those 4 decades out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I haven't thought about it that much because I guess I don't have much of the hobbies or habits or the anything beside my daily routines. But what I want is that I want to retire, or by the time I retire, I hope to have actually contributed to the like the society or humanity or whatnot, that I feel like I've actually done something like something that is tangible, more tangible than the how we scientists we tend to contribute a lot to society. Some of them they become tangible over time, some of them are tangible from the beginning, but often we let the society to follow up and make things tangible eventually, because our job is to try to look at the frontier and then trying to see what are the directions that we feel like the science and the society need to pursue. But I feel like one thing that I want to have achieved by the time of my retirement is to, in fact, be also create something tangible myself as well. Not sure exactly what that's going to be, but I feel like if I hadn't done that by that time, then I'll be like so sad, and I'll probably have a retirement of my job and my life all together, because I'll be sitting on my office because I haven't done anything, built anything tangible. I need to work on it, and then done.
Given the way you're going, Kyungyan, I'd seriously doubt that you're going to be looking back 4 decades from now with that sort of a concern.
I hope so. I might be actually listening to this 4 decades later and saying that, no, I haven't actually succeeded in it.
How do you imagine your retirement?
How do I imagine my retirement? It's a very tough question. Yeah, the first season was much easier. Like the questions. Like, what did you eat, and like what was your?
I will pass the message on to Devi. But she was pitching low balls.
Yeah. So okay, for retirement, yeah, probably a nice house, a nice car, and I cannot imagine myself retired, that because I get bored. Like for example, when I sometimes I go on vacation to visit my parents for 3-4 weeks, and by the second week I get bored because I'm not doing anything. So I think I cannot imagine myself not doing anything during retirement. So probably I will keep working, and I do something. So it's yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine myself like relaxing and enjoying the sunshine at the beach and so on.
How do you imagine your retirement?
My retirement.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, it's. I'm not suggesting anything. These questions are standard. They're not catered just to you. So this is not suggestive of anything.
Yeah. I imagine that there'll be the difference between like initial retirement and steady state retirement. Like initially, I think I'll want a break. I think I'll want to travel and, you know, make sure I spend a lot of time with friends and family that I don't get to see usually. But after that's over, when it's like, you know, more steady state and I'm ready to have more like a hobby or something, then I don't know. I really like mentoring people and talking with younger people, and so I can totally imagine myself, you know, getting some sort of a gig as doing that more full time. So still having, you know, hopefully it would be lower pressure weekly coffee chats with different people and talking to them, helping them kind of like move forward in life.
And what age are you imagining in your head when you imagine this scenario? What age do you think you will be?
Oh gosh.
I
don't
know.
know. Some long way away, that's for sure. But
Not like 35, I'm done, like, or 45, like I'm quitting early. You're thinking something far away.
Something far away.
How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, I see. Now that's quite easy. I'll just be a ski bum. You know, I will. Yeah. So I'm 52. My daughter is 10. So when I'm 60, she'll be 18. And you know, that seems like a reasonable point to consider. You know, moving to a mountain hut or whatever it is. And obviously, you know, I think most academics, thinkers, technical people, whatever we are, you know, my retirement will definitely have a lot of programming in it, or building objects of whatever form. You know, I don't think I've learned a bit about gardening. I don't think gardening is that object that I would build. I think it would probably be something. Yeah, there's lots of mathematics, or you know, maybe it'll be reinforcement learning with gamma equals 1.
So it's beginning to sound like a lot of the same.
It might be a lot of the same, but you know, it'll be a lot of the same, but with a much lower turnaround time on emails.
Sure. But would you want a much lower turnaround time with emails? Like I would imagine that retirement is the ability to say, I'm done with emails.
Oh, that was sure. Yeah. Sorry, zero emails would work too. But you know, you want your emails to your collaborators, and you know, you're mailing your pamphlets around the world with your latest crazy idea. And by the way, of course, you know, I said 60 as an interesting point. I don't know what age one retires, but yeah, I've got I've got 1 or 2 projects that I'd really like to see done, and I'm sure after those there'll be more. And then when they're all done, you know, there'll probably be more.
How do you imagine your retirement?
Oof, on a beach. I'm glad that you're asking this question. You know why? Because I bet you that a lot of people say, "What retirement? I'm not gonna retire." I want to retire. I'd like to retire like sooner than later, I think. Yeah, so I imagine myself somewhere near water, near a beach, having like my little like farm with things that I can, you know, have control over and growing whatever I want, close to friends and family.
This almost sounds like you've got a place picked out in Greece.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah, okay. you have an address in mind.
Yep.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, I know that you've answered this, but what is your answer to this question?
This is actually so I took season 1 questions and I kept 50% of them and I introduced 50% new questions. So this is one of them that I haven't answered. How do I imagine my retirement? You know, I'm not much for beaches. Like I'd much rather want to have a view of mountains, or like I like a good viewpoint and a long distance view, and so somewhere close to nature, close to a gym, close to a couple of other things, but yeah, like
But like city or like non-city?
oh, I'm okay with non-city. Yeah, I think being far away from cities grants you. Okay, how about 1 hour driving distance to a city?
Okay,
That's
okay,
kind of
close
nice.
enough.
Yeah.
But you do want to retire, like that's
Oh,
like
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, and I imagine myself like with just a stack load of books and like reading, just being left alone and reading for long periods of time, and maybe trying my hand at writing. Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, retirement. Huh. So I think it's going to be the same as how it is right now. Maybe with, more independence to do. No, I already have full independence to do what I want to do. Like usually people think that, I would have more independence to do what I want to do. But I feel like, yeah, I already have plenty of independence in that regard. So maybe less work, definitely less insecurity for me, because, starting out right now, I imagine by the time I'm retired, I'm much more established and feeling more happy where I am, more secure where I am.
Any particular location? Any particular
location? Yeah, I would like a house on top of a hill looking over a body of water. It's a very particular idea, not in the Bay Area, because could not afford that. I will have to work till I'm 80 to be able to afford a house like that in the Bay Area. But I would like a house covered in the woods, or like a house in the woods, which is like on an elevated area overlooking something nice.
And are you imagining an age?
Not right now, maybe 60, 65, but yeah, not particularly.
How do you imagine your retirement?
My retirement? Well, the only thing we've discussed kind of jokingly is that I would love to go back to Austin when I retire because it's nice and warm.
Okay. That's step number 1. You have a place in mind.
Yeah. I hope it's not insanely expensive by that time, which who knows. I don't think I want to be, some people work when they retire. I don't think I would want to work. I think also retirement is not necessarily easy because it's I don't know, having a lot of time to think could lead to kind of negative, I don't know, thinking is not always good. Sometimes I'd rather be doing things than thinking. So I think retirement, yeah, is in some sense looking forward to it, but in a lot of senses not. I hope I find something meaningful to do with my time. I don't know if that would be helping others or being creative or I used to joke that when I get tenure, I'll learn how to be a movie director and I'll start directing movies in my spare time. Maybe I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So maybe when I retire, I can become a movie director.
I'm gently amused by the fact that you think you'll have spare time after tenure.
I thought that maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think it was probably just a joke with myself to keep me motivated. I used to be really, in fact, when I was in grad school, I took an acting class, but I don't think I'm very good at acting. I think I would make if I watch more movies, which I used to do a lot, if I keep that up, I would probably make a not entirely terrible movie director, but I also have zero background in that. So
Fascinating.
It's just an interest that I wish I had more time to pursue.
This is another one of those things that I think would be surprising about you.
I suppose, yeah. It's surprising because again, I've become this entirely uninteresting person, but I used to be a lot more interesting before I had to work so hard.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I think you continue to be an interesting person, but
thank you. I guess I wasn't begging for that compliment. I actually do think that I was more interesting before, but it's okay. People mature in different ways and they're not all bad.
Fair enough. How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, I don't think I will necessarily retire. I think I'll be kind of putting around in this space for as long as I can. But I mean, look, my activities are essentially that of a retired person anyway. I'm fishing, I'm fishing out there with like 60, 70-year-olds, so I'm good, right? I feel like I've got that part figured out.
That's an interesting take on things. Okay. So no significant changes of like, moving to a certain part of the country or the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel an urge to. I'm not opposed. I do like to travel. I think there's lots of fun things to see, but no, I'm pretty happy with kind of where I am. I think that's one of the things I've enjoyed about the pandemic is actually it is like, forced us all to kind of explore our local regions a little bit more. And I've really enjoyed that actually. Yeah, so this is the sturgeon fishing example of that actually. Yeah. They're all in the St. Lawrence and I'm like literally living in an island in the middle of the St. Lawrence. So yeah.
How do you imagine your retirement?
For a very long time, I've imagined I would never retire. If you asked me when I was a kid, long before I knew what I was going to be doing, I said that I was going to die at my desk someday, and I was really excited about this idea.
This is when you were a child.
Yeah. I was a weird kid. I thought like it would be so cool because you would see these totally fictional portrayals of like scientists and things like this, and I thought like, oh, if I was doing something so awesome that I would just like want to be there every day, and then I would just do it until someday I croaked and I just couldn't do it anymore. What an amazing life that would be. Not sure that's the healthiest attitude. But
that bit.
So I haven't really thought about retirement until pretty recently. And I don't think that I will ever retire. Or let me rephrase that. I might retire from a job and into something else. But I suspect that I've been having this conversation a lot with my parents and my grandparents. And retirement now, I don't think makes sense in the way that it used to like 50 years ago, because people live substantially longer. And so, you know, my parents are in their 60s and 70s, my grandparents in like, you know, 80s and 90s. And they're retired, but like my grandparents now have been retired for, I don't know, 30 years. My parents will probably be retired for like 20 or 30 years. Like, I don't want to sit on a beach, and they don't want to sit on a beach for 20, 30 years. So what do you do instead? And I think what you do is you use that time. So hopefully you're, you know, living your life the way you're to the best as you can until before that. But you use that time, if you can afford um, to do the things that you can't afford now. For example, the conversation I've been having with my mom is, she's a lawyer. She's like, well, if I have enough money to be retired, then I have enough money to do pro bono law for the next 30 years, right? There's a ton of people who can't afford a lawyer. I don't need the money, so therefore I should, you know, try to rebalance society a little bit by being that person. And so I feel like, I don't know what that looks like for me yet, but I feel like that's kind of the same answer, right? Is sort of like, for those of us who are, you know, lucky enough to be, you know, drawing, you know, comfortable salaries, we're very well educated, we're very well connected. You know, we obviously should be giving back now, and I think hopefully as academics, we're, you know, that's part of why we're even doing this in the first place. But for sure, if we're at a point where we literally don't need to draw a salary again for the rest of our lives, then that feels like that's the point at which we really need to switch sort of philanthropically. And so maybe that means, you know, teaching at lots of local schools, doing lots of local enrichment programs, you know, helping with, you know, test prep. I don't know exactly what that will look like, or what's the most effective way for me to use my position or my education. But that's kind of what I think of in terms of what retirement is. Retirement is, if you as the well-educated person that you are no longer need to draw a salary, what can you now do in terms of social benefit, because you don't have to worry about capitalism.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I mean, the thing that I love about this, to be totally honest, like, is I don't want to, like, because I feel like there's a natural criticism here that someone listening, which is like, oh, this is all fine and good for, you know, kid in his 30s to say or whatever. Like, we'll see if he lives it. And that's part of why I think it's important to be super loud and like open about everything, right? Is that, like, I do really want there to be accountability. Right. So if someone were to show up, so if I'm 60 and someone's listening to this and they're like, well, he's 60, like, what's he gonna do? Like, I think they should just basically knock on my door and be like, all right, buddy, what altruistic things are you doing? You know, like, how are you spending your time and your money? And then from my perspective, in terms of personal growth, right, is to make sure that, like, I at no point take any offense to that question, right? Like, because I don't want to, like, get into a place of complacency where I'm like, you know, not willing to change or not willing to live up to the sort of ideals. I mean, like, we never live up to our ideals, maybe, but we at least work towards them. And so I think having very public conversations about these things, and then having public friendly notions of accountability, is also important on every aspect of, you know, this job in our lives.
It sounds like you actively think about shaping the behavior of your future self by making commitments that will keep your future self on the hook and accountable. Do you think of your future self as a person you need to control, separate from yourself?
Yeah, in a sense, I do. Yeah, I think a lot about complacency. I think a lot about structures of power and privilege, and how they perpetuate, and how easy it is to when looking after oneself or one's, you know, closest family, to slip into that perpetuation. And so I have a game that I've played with myself and my friends, and we don't have to play it, but I have a game that I've played for many years now, where I ask, what's something that you think someday you'll be a conservative about? And the point of the game is, once you figure out what that is, you get to start working on it now, so that that day never comes.
I've played this game. I've thought not phrased like that, but I've thought of this question because I also grew up believing what is the generation of my kids possibly going to rebel against me for? I am fairly liberal, like I'm, sure, consenting adults, you can do whatever you want. And like I think it finally came down to something like interhuman cyborg relationships or human robot relationships. I was like, that feels weird. Like, and I could totally see myself making the same kinds of arguments that other people have. I'd be like, oh, I need to work on this.
So as long as your thing is always sufficiently far in the future, it's probably okay. But I think there's actually some ones that, and I'm not necessarily saying for you, but when I talk with people, there's a lot of ones that when we start to dig into them are pretty local. So for example, like to take one that I think is probably not that controversial, but probably affects us all. I think we all in name are aware of global warming and climate change and want to take drastic changes. But I think we all have probably some pretty conservative lines that we're not willing to cross in terms of our own personal comfort in order to make that change. And now I'm not saying that this is like actually going to happen tomorrow, but like if like socially, if we had a mandate that came down from the top, we're like, all right, we're going to fundamentally change stuff. So like conferences, there's no travel in the future, period. Like we're basically banning that. We're like vacations, like if you can get there via electric car, fine, but we're not taking, I think there's a lot of us who are sufficiently privileged that we would be like, no, like you've crossed some sort of line that we wouldn't be able to cross. Now, we can discuss whether or not that's actually a fair thing, but I think that there are a lot of these kinds of like things where we say, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with basically any change for green energy. But what we mean is, I think I have enough money that I can offset the bad behavior that I plan to keep doing. And so that will keep it balanced. But if I actually had to change my behavior, I would basically be that loud conservative saying you're taking away my rights and you're taking away my freedom or something like this, right? And so I think there's like a lot of these kinds of things, and I'm not at all trying to point finger. I think that I'm certainly guilty of some of this myself. But yeah, I play this game a lot because I think a lot about like how climate change may fundamentally restructure society over the course of the next 10 years. And if I buy a house that has natural gas in it or whatever else, at some point I probably maybe right now should just spend the extra money to remove that, but then there's that part of you is like, oh, but like why should I have to do that if other people in society aren't taking as per, and it's like, okay, well then that's a conversation I need to have with myself about accountability with myself. And again, I'm not even claiming to be even remotely good or perfect at, oh, Google thinks I was talking to it. I'm not talking to you, Google. Oh, stop. No, stop talking.
It's fine. I can't hear anything. It may be disruptive to you, but I can't hear it.
Okay. Google just said, I found you a result on how to be happy with money. And then it started going off. Anyway, so I play this game a lot, and so yes, I do think about sort of guardrails. I know that I'm failing in various ways right now. There are things that I do that are good. There are things that I do that are not sufficiently. And then I think a lot about like, how do I make sure I don't get worse? And then ideally, where are the places where I would hopefully get better? And then also trying to be still like lenient with. So as much as I want myself and everyone to change quickly, realizing that generational change and other things like this do take some amount of time. So what is a reasonable leeway? And so I tend to think about this in terms of like 5 or 10 year kinds of things. What does my group look like in 5 years? What is sort of that my carbon footprint look like in 5 years? And maybe I don't meet those goals, but then that means in 5 years, I do need to have a check-in where I reevaluate.
How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. I don't know. I definitely fantasize about that in the winter on the East Coast.
Interesting. With all the snow.
Yeah. I think some academics don't really retire. They kind of keep on working. I don't think I want to do that. I want to kind of I don't know, play tennis, do the crossword every day.
Hmm.
Kind of feel like I mean, I guess when our generation retires, we'll do all the same things we do, like, or found fun when we were young as adults. So yeah, I think that would be nice. Yeah, I'd like to really retire.
Do you have a place or an age in mind?
Oh, I don't know. My parents basically still work and they're towards the retirement age. I don't know how standard it is to know that. I think probably I'd like to be near a city or kind of in a city for part of the year. I always find it really inspiring when you see someone at retirement age in New York City, like being awesome and dressing really cool and going to art galleries and walking up the subway. Like, people just seem to just not age, which I find really fun. So I'm always inspired by that.
Interesting. How do you imagine your retirement?
My what?
Your retirement.
Oh, I see. I mean, so if we think about my generation's retirement, it sounds like a LAN party in a retirement home or something, right? Which is really up my alley. So, there's classic video games that, because we weren't together at the time, like my spouse and I haven't played together, and they're in our bucket list to, go back and just play through World of Warcraft together, because we never did that together. It'd be super fun. So I suspect retirement will just involve, heavy indulgence in these sorts of hobbies, which, arthritis willing, will not be so hard to achieve.
Sounds like you have an age in mind.
I don't. And I think if you asked, my partner, they might respond that I'll probably keep doing this until they stop me. But no, I don't. I'm not like, planning for retirement in any serious sort of capacity, like in, real estate holdings or anything. I think I'd be quite happy to work until I'm quite bored with it.
Hmm. How do you imagine your retirement?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I was thinking about that the other day. I hope that's not too, I think that was just a one-off moment. So I worry because I don't think I'd be good at doing nothing. And so I'm not sure that an entire retirement would ever really be optimal. But then I feel, very fortunate that the sort of work we do, it should be possible to do a version of it, for as long as one wishes, right? So it doesn't have to be paid or, a big budget or anything like that. But it should be possible to think about research and I'm interested in neuroscience and these sorts of problems. I don't think they're going to be resolved in my lifetime. So hopefully there'll still be some stuff to do by the time I reach a retirement age. Who knows? Yeah. So I'd like to have a lot of stuff to think about. And then also, I made a big investment in my retirement when I learned how to play golf. So that's something I might do. And I'd like to be somewhere warm. So I feel like somebody from a warm country trapped in a British person's body. That's how I often feel. So yeah, so I'd like to indulge that side of myself and be somewhere sunny.
Of the mindset that pain and misery and bad environment and weather is what builds character.
No, I mean, I definitely don't think it builds character. There's an argument for saying it's somewhat correlated over history. It's somewhat correlated with more economic output or something like that. But firstly, I'm not sure that's the right thing to be measuring, and also, I think that's probably an old that's probably an old kind of effect, if it is an effect. So, having said that, I've never lived at length in a beautiful climate and had to go to work every day for long periods. So I don't want to comment on how it makes people feel in that situation. But I would say, for example, that there's many great AI research going on in Southern California and places like that, and they have beautiful climates, so must be possible.
Yeah. You could even try your parent company. They have offices there.
yeah. Thanks for the tip. I'll think about it. No, I'm honestly, I actually do feel very European. That's one thing I do feel more than that's the one identity, the one tribe I might attach myself to. I don't know why. I just like the mix. I just like the mix of different languages and stuff all in that place. And I kind of thought the way Europe, I mean, with a lot of help from I guess America and other places. And I should say historically that Europe's been responsible for many bad things in the world. So I definitely don't want to make this continent out to be perfect, but I do think there was it was kind of a high point in evolution, the conduct of humans after the Second World War around that part of the world where, where for whatever reason they put a bunch of stuff behind them and said like the most important thing is to not get into conflict again. I think that was pretty cool. And yeah, it seems to, unfortunately, a lot of people seem to have forgotten that, including people in my country. So yeah, so I guess I feel a bit more European than British.
Interesting. How do you imagine your retirement?
Teaching kids, students, like in a university somewhere. Yeah, that's how I imagine retirement.
Well, your retirement is my profession.
No, like you
no,
are teaching.
I kid, obviously.
Yeah. No, I love teaching. I mean, the point is like retirement for me does not mean that you are finally having fun and doing the things that you would like to do, because I'm already doing that.
Mm-hmm.
My philosophy is that you should be doing sort of what you would do anyways. Mm-hmm. So if somebody stops, I mean, don't tell my employer, but if somebody stops paying me, I would still be doing the exact same thing.
Fewer Zoom calls, maybe.
No, like equal number of Zoom calls. I love collaborating with people and I love sort of multidisciplinary work. So I would still be doing all of that. But maybe I feel that sort of I will be doing it at a slower pace. But yeah, I mean, my sort of notion of retirement is doing the same work, but maybe at a slightly lower pace.
And do you have a place in mind and an age in mind?
I mean, that depends on biology. When biology sort of makes, when I'm not able to sort of work at the pace I'm currently able to, then I think, then I would know. Now, whether that happens like at 60, at 50, at 40, at 70, I don't know. But
or at 120 if anti-aging research comes through.
I'm not really sure. I want to sort of I want to live that long. Yeah, I mean, like anti-aging is one thing, right? But also like what can the brain handle? I mean, our brains are amazing, but I don't think that they evolved for such long life.
I mean, the life expectancy was in 30s at some point, and we've stretched it to 80. Is there something is a physical law that says we cannot stretch it to a reasonably functional human being that is 200 years old?
Yeah, we could. I think it's all about basically, yeah, like it's all sort of relative, right? But like 80, 30 are just numbers, right? 120 is a number. Like maybe we will sort of think of it, think of all these sort of milestones in a different way. Yeah, it could be 120, who knows? But having had so much excitement till now, yeah, there's also excitement overload. so let's see. I might change my mind on this later.
Yeah, this could be one of those things that you change your mind about as well.
Yeah. Now that you remind me, yeah, I did change my mind on many things. I used to think that I was not very sure whether I would have kids, but then I changed my mind on that. So that's another thing that I changed my mind on.
And now they serve as biological alarm clocks.
Yeah, exactly. So I got what I deserved.
How do you imagine your retirement?
I don't. As we talked earlier, the looking forward and having plans and abstractions. I don't do well. I think I have couch potato genes in a sense that there is a natural state of like dissociation and couch potato-ness that I fight against. And so if you look at how I live my life, there is basically zero couch potato-ness almost, and yet I'm always in fear that I'll end up there. So I think retirement is not something that I can visualize. I don't know if I'll be doing the same job. I can reinvent myself again, but I hope to be active in fulfilling ways that are kind of contributing to the world as long as I can.
There's a Nobel Prize waiting to be won for the identification of the couch potato gene.
Oh well, I'm happy to donate some cheek swabs to help that process. I can tell you 100% that that's there. But it's totally genotype, not phenotype, and so. But that's about that personal struggle. Yeah.
How do you imagine your retirement?
I'm sorry, what?
How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, my retirement. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I'm also at the age now to think about that sort of thing. I plan to be busy. I mean, if you think about so I do a lot of things day to day, including filling out paperwork and making decisions. But you asked me earlier, what the best part of my day is, and it's, thinking about problem solving and thinking about things, right? Luckily, I mean, the job puts me in a position where I get new ones of those every couple of hours, but I don't need a job to think about problems, right? I don't need a job to try to kind of decide what's a thing that's worth learning, or what's a thing that's worth doing, or what's a book that's worth reading. And so I'm hoping my retirement will continue, at least in that way, to look very similar to what it is I'm doing now. I'm hoping to, once I'm no longer in a job, to sit on boards, to volunteer for a variety of things where I can continue to have some kind of impact until I'm no longer able to do so. And the stakes will be different, but I don't think they'll be any lower. So that's kind of where I'm hoping to be, as opposed to traveling. I travel a lot now. I'm sure I'll continue to, but the goal isn't to get away from the things that I've been doing. It's just to have a more leisurely way of doing the things that I enjoy doing now.
And do you have a place in mind?
I don't plan on selling my current house.
That's
no
nice.
matter what happens. I would like to sit back there and watch 80-year-old men curse every time they miss a putt for the next 40 years, even if I leave Atlanta and I go someplace else. I plan on coming back to that.
With the giant fans. With the giant fans blowing in the...
Oh yeah. I'll have more fans by then. It'll be great.
Yeah. How do you imagine your retirement?
Hmm?
How do you imagine?
Did you say retirement?
Yeah. How do you imagine your retirement?
Oh, I don't want to. I don't want to. But if I do, then I want to have a serious career elsewhere. I don't know what, but I think I must be a bit of a workaholic.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe.
little
you want a
single-minded.
serious career in your retirement.
Yeah.
All right. So that just begs the question: how about the retirement from that? How do you imagine that?
I want to upload myself to.
This is really there's an infinite horizon. All right. I think I got the answer to that question.
Move to Mars.